In the 1960s, British lorries dominated at home and across the Commonwealth. They were faster, tougher, and ran on next to nothing. Then American trucks arrived with raw power and ambition. What happened next shocked the industry. Foreign manufacturers saw weakness and attacked hard. Within a decade, British dominance crumbled completely. This is the story of why Britain stopped building the world's best lorries. After World War II ended in 1945, Britain faced a transportation crisis. The war effort had consumed millions of vehicles. Factories that once built tanks and military trucks had to shift gears fast. British manufacturers saw opportunity, while American trucks flooded into Europe with those massive engines and chrome glory. British engineers started asking smarter questions. They didn't ask how big they could build. They asked how efficient they could be. This mindset split the truck world in two. America had endless highways stretching thousands of miles across open desert and grassland. Britain had narrow lanes built for horse carriages, tight towns with medieval streets, and roads shared with buses and cars. The United States Interstate Highway System launched in 1956. It gave American truck makers a blank canvas. Trucks could be massive because the roads supported it. British manufacturers faced the opposite problem. Every inch mattered. Every pound wasted meant less cargo or more fuel burned. Britain's manufacturers understood this constraint was actually an advantage. They started designing differently. By the 1950s, two completely different truck philosophies had emerged on opposite sides of the Atlantic. American trucks grew longer, heavier, and more powerful. The cab sat high. The hood stretched forward like a shark's snout. Diesel engines roared at high RPM with brute force pushed through multiple gears. The philosophy was simple: bigger, stronger, more comfortable for the driver. British lorries went another direction entirely. The cab sat directly over the engine. This cab-over design shortened the entire vehicle while maximising cargo space. A British articulated lorry could carry the same load as an American rig while being feet shorter. On British roads, this wasn't luxury. This was survival. The cab-over design forced engineers to think smarter about every component. It forced weight reduction. It forced efficiency. The design gap widened through the 1950s. American trucks were built for the driver's experience. Long wheelbase meant comfort. Sleeper cabs became standard. The driver sat in the middle of a long platform. Bumps from the road got absorbed by distance. American trucks eventually topped speeds of 70 miles per hour on straight highways. This aerodynamic advantage mattered when you covered thousands of miles in a single trip. British lorries made different trade-offs. The driver sat over the front wheels. Every bump transmitted directly. Speed rarely exceeded 50 miles per hour on winding A roads. But these trucks could turn around in spaces that would have needed American rigs to reverse and manoeuvre 3 times. In London, traffic or country villages, that mattered. British design wasn't inferior, it was different. It was optimised for different roads. The real gap wasn't in chassis design, it was in the engine compartment. Britain had something America didn't fully appreciate: the Gardner diesel. L. Gardner and Sons Limited started building diesel engines in Manchester around 1903. For decades, they were just another engine maker. Then, in the 1950s, the company pushed into new territory with modern engine design. The 6LX series emerged from this era. It was a 10.4 5-litre inline 6-cylinder diesel that would become legendary. The engineering brilliance came from the company's design team, including key work by Hugh Gardner. The 6LXB variant came in the late 1960s. It produced 180 horsepower at only 1,850 revolutions per minute. That might sound weak compared to American engines screaming at 2,000 to 2,100 revolutions per minute, but the numbers told a different story. The Gardner delivered maximum torque at an astoundingly low 975 to 1,100 revolutions per minute. At low revolutions per minute, engines produce massive pulling force with minimal strain. The Gardner didn't just make power, it made intelligent power. Gardner engines achieved thermal efficiency exceeding 40%. This wasn't just better than competitors. This was unmatched at the time. Tests showed even a 2-ton Bentley luxury car with a Gardner diesel, could reach 30 miles per gallon while hitting 80 miles per hour. The engine was derated deliberately. It operated at lower temperatures, lower oil pressure, and lower RPM than rival engines. This meant less wear, less stress, and incredible longevity. British hauliers built their reputation on Gardner-powered lorries. A Gardner engine in a 24-ton truck or 32-ton articulated lorry was virtually indestructible even under grinding conditions. Reports came back of Gardner engines running for 1.5 million miles. When they finally wore out, they could be completely rebuilt and run another 1.5 million miles. Parts could be polished to a shine that looked like jewellery. The engine wasn't just mechanical, it was elegant. American diesel engines prioritised power above all else. Cummins and Caterpillar engines made more horsepower in smaller packages, but they ran hot and worked hard. They required more frequent overhauls. They were engineering solutions built for a different problem. American hauliers needed speed and power for long transcontinental runs. British hauliers needed reliability and economy for tight, crowded roads. The 1960s became the golden era for British commercial vehicles. Leyland, AEC, Foden, Scania, Atkinson, ERF, Guy, and Seddon dominated roads across the United Kingdom. This wasn't just market dominance at home. British lorries went everywhere. Commonwealth nations bought them. Former colonies ordered them by the thousands. African countries ran British lorries across impossible terrain. India, Malaysia, Singapore and Pakistan built their transport industries on British vehicles. Leyland, founded in Lancashire back in 1896, grew into the largest truck maker in the British Empire. The company acquired Associated Commercial Vehicles, AEC, in 1962, bringing major brands under one roof. Then, in 1968, Leyland merged with British Motor Holdings to form British Leyland Motor Corporation. Suddenly, Leyland controlled massive portions of the British truck market. They made the octopus, the beaver, the lynx. These weren't pretty, they were purposeful. An 8-wheeler Leyland hauling full payload down narrow A roads was a common sight. Scania specialised in heavy haulage and specialised applications. They built tank transporters for the British Army. They made vehicles for oil fields, logging operations and heavy construction. The Scania Pioneer pioneered off-highway capability with a patent beam bogie rear axle that allowed 2 feet of vertical movement on each rear wheel. This gave Scania unique traction on uneven terrain. The military used Pioneers as tank transporters in World War II. Operators used them in the harshest conditions on the planet. Foden traced back to 1856 when they built steam-powered lorries. By the 1950s, they had shifted fully to diesel. The FG and FE models of 1948 featured the stylish S18 cab. They became classics that helped establish Foden as one of the leading 8-wheeler manufacturers through the 1950s. By 1960, British lorries had virtual market domination. The tentative appearance of a few foreign vehicles toward the decade's end was barely noticed. Nobody thought anything would change this. American truck makers didn't worry about the British market. They barely noticed it. Peterbilt, Kenworth, Mack, and International operated in a completely different universe. The American interstate system kept expanding. Federal weight limits evolved gradually, increasing from £28,000 in the 1920s and reaching £80,000 as standard practice by the 1980s. The Surface Transportation Assistance Act of 1982 made this £80,000 limit mandatory on the interstate system. That's nearly 4 times heavier than the original limit. American law specifically excluded the cab from overall length limits. This meant trucks could have sleeper cabs, creature comforts, and still operate legally. Peterbilt started in 1939 from the logging industry. The company's founder, T.A. Peterman, didn't just build trucks. He consulted truckers themselves about what they wanted. This customer-focused approach shaped Peterbilt's design philosophy. The company prioritised driver comfort on ultra-long hauls. The Model 351, introduced in 1954, featured the distinctive red oval Peterbilt logo. By 1965 came the bird hood ornament. These weren't just badges, They were statements of identity. Kenworth launched in 1923 and pioneered sleeper cabs. They understood that drivers crossing American deserts needed places to rest. Peterbilt and Kenworth competed viciously, yet they shared the same design DNA. Long-nose conventional cabs, high-horsepower engines, comfortable interiors built for thousands of miles at steady highway speeds. Mack Trucks built the Super Duty series in 1945. These trucks were designed to be more powerful than anything else on the market. Mack became so iconic in America that songs got written about them. The name Mack became synonymous with toughness in American culture. American trucks weren't better or worse than British lorries. They were different animals built for different roads and different missions. The 1970s changed everything. Foreign truck manufacturers suddenly arrived on British roads. Volvo from Sweden, Scania from Sweden, DAF from Holland, Mercedes-Benz from Germany, MAN from Germany. These manufacturers brought air suspension, more power, better cab comfort, and modern styling. They brought change that British operators had started wanting. The 1960s was the last decade where British-built vehicles had virtual domination on the nation's roads. The 1970s saw significant shifts in buying patterns as hauliers tried these foreign alternatives. Volvo and Scania offered advantages British makers hadn't provided: better driver facilities, smoother rides, more powerful engines without the fuel consumption penalty. These Swedish and German trucks were advanced. British manufacturers tried to respond. Leyland introduced the T45 range. It featured a modern cab and better comfort. But by then, the market had shifted. Hauliers had tested Volvo and liked what they found. Brand loyalty eroded. By the 1980s, foreign trucks had conquered British roads. The decline wasn't because British lorries were inferior. The decline happened because hauliers' needs changed. New roads appeared. Weight limits increased. Driver comfort became higher priority. The Gardner engine's unmatched efficiency mattered less when fuel became cheap. The cab-over design's space efficiency mattered less when bigger vehicles became legal. The Gardner 6 LX engine remains legendary for good reason. Huge proportions are still in daily use or preserved in museums. The engineering was brilliant. Hugh Gardner's design created an engine that could run 1 million miles, then another million miles after complete rebuild. No computer controlled it. No electronics managed it. It was pure mechanical excellence. Scammell built vehicles for applications where nothing else worked. Their tank transporters served military forces for decades. Their heavy haulage vehicles moved equipment competitors couldn't handle. Leyland Trucks survived as a subsidiary of PACCAR after various corporate marriages. Foden disappeared as a brand, but its engineering lived on. ERF, Atkinson and Seddon faded. Yet their influence spread globally to operators who understood durability and efficiency. The real lesson is this: innovation happens in response to constraints. British lorries were brilliant because British roads forced brilliant design. When British roads changed and hauliers' priorities shifted, British lorries couldn't adapt fast enough. The 1960s remained the pinnacle of British commercial vehicle engineering. For one shining decade, these vehicles were unquestionably the most efficient and purpose-built for their market in the world.